video for you for like my favorite romances. I figured it is February, it is Valentine's Day month, love is in the air. I would share some of my favorites. So I tried to narrow it down to about 10. I definitely have more favorites than are making this list because I'm like looking around the room. I feel like I'm missing some. So there's definitely more out there, but I figured I would just share a handful. If you've been following me for a very long time, you know who I'm going to say first, and that's Candy Steiner. Most of them I picked like one book that like, or like one series that's my favorite, but basically I love anything that Candy Steiner writes. Her romances are just my absolute favorite. So I just kind of picked the first one that was like on the top of the pile, like because I have read almost like everything she's come out with. So I basically was just like, who's first? You are. But this is actually my favorite in one of her series. So this is one of my favorite series, which is called On the Rocks. And, well, the first one's On the Rocks, and it's the Becker Brothers series. Each book follows a different brother. Originally, On the Rocks was my favorite book. This is the fourth and final book in the series, and this one's probably my new favorite because I really like Jordan. Oh my god, what if that's not his name? No, that is his name. I really like Jordan because he reminded me of my husband, and I really enjoyed this romance. And so anything by Candy Steiner, if you're looking for angst, you're looking for just a real deep connection with characters that you can just fall in love with them and their story, highly recommend her. Then the other one that I talk about all the time is The Ones Who Got Away by Ronnie Laura. This is another 4-book series. And this one you were following different friends. And when they were in high school, they were at their prom, and there is one of their fellow students came in and shot up the prom and basically killed a whole ton of students. These 4 are some of the survivors, and this is just them like kind of like refinding their lives and finding love 12 years later. So really enjoy this series because I feel like it hits on really tough topics as well as romance. So it's not just a fluffy romance, it's got more than that. So definitely love this one. Then I threw in here, I just realized that I never took the sticker off. I've had this book forever. I think that part of my love for this series is just my nostalgia purposes. This is called One Week to the Wedding by Olivia Miles, and I read this about a week before my wedding, so I feel like I just kind of have a connection to it that way. But I've read 3 books by her now, so I've read this one, the second book that technically comes in this series, and Mistletoe on Main Street. I still need to read the second book in that series, but she is another one that I really like her romances. They're just sweet and wholesome, and you can't find much wrong with that. But look at this cover too. Like, it's just stunning and pretty, and I really need to like get back on her and like read a lot of her backlist because she's got a very big backlist and I want to get to them. Then I've got Baking with a Rockstar by Jasmine Miller. I have now read this one and the sequel, which is Tempted by My Roommate. And this is, again, just another, like, wholesome, sweet read. I read them on my Kindle because I just was in a, like, Kindle reading mood. And we're following this, like, single mom, and she is, like, living with this woman, and one day the woman's, like, grandson comes to town, and she just, like, almost, like, falls head over heels for him. And he actually turned out to be a rock star. Like, he's, like, home on break from tour, and it's their love connection. And it just was sweet and perfect and just everything I wanted. And the relationship with the daughter in this book, like, it's just phenomenal. Love this series. And then we've got My Favorite Souvenir by Penelope Ward and V. Keeland. So actually, if you haven't seen it yet, maybe it's not coming out yet, I talk about new authors that I discovered in 2020. I probably should have put V. Keeland too because I forgot that they wrote this together. But this book we read last year. Kendra and Shelby were hosting a buddy read with this one, and we read this, and we all like loved this book. Like, I read this on my Kindle through Kindle Unlimited, and I loved it so much that I had to purchase myself a physical copy. I know that this book screams summer, but this book actually takes place in the winter. Like, there's snowy scenes. So I would actually recommend you read this in the winter and not summer. I mean, it's perfectly fine if you want to read it in the summer too, but it's just definitely like a wintry vibe story. And I love this one too. We are following two characters who end up getting snowed in. They can't leave because the airport is like closed and not letting anybody take off. So they end up in this hotel, which is overbooked because nobody can leave. And they pretty much pretend to be brother and sister so that way they can get a room together. And because they need to get a room, so they pretend to like take somebody else's like reservation because that they didn't show up, so they like steal their reservation by pretending to be them, and it's their love story, and it was just so good. Then one of my absolute favorite series from Jennifer Probst. She is a romance author that I love to pieces, but I do find that I love some series more than others. So one of my favorite series by her, oh hi Kat. One of my favorite series by her is the Searching For series, which is, this one is the first book, and it's Searching For Someday. The covers, I don't believe look like this anymore. They've had like so many cover changes. Like half my series looks like this, and half my series looks completely different. So when you're searching for it, you see what I did there? When you're looking for it on Amazon or your local store, I don't know if the cover looks like this anymore. But this one is my favorite series. I love it because it follows these four friends. And I believe 3 out of the 4, so I think the 4th one doesn't. But 3 of them co-run this like matchmaking company together, and it's just a lot of fun. And I enjoy friendship groups like that where like each friend gets a book and you get to see their romance, and I really enjoyed this one. Over winter it wasn't over winter break, but last December we read A Princess for Christmas by Jenny Holiday, and this was just such a sweet read. I probably actually should have put her also on that list. I might need to refilm that at this rate. But this is a sweet holiday romance where we are following a guy who is basically raising his little sister because their parents are dead, and they kind of come into contact with this princess and their love story, and just all the feels, all the sweetness, perfect holiday romancy read with steam. You wouldn't expect this to have steam looking at it, but it does. Then I've got Eleanor and Gray by Brittany C. Cherry. This is another one that I read as a Kindle Unlimited book and loved it so much that I purchased it because I loved this one so much. I sobbed like a baby. I can't wait to read more by her. I can't believe that I still haven't read anything else by her because I always think about her and I always want to start one of her books and I just haven't. This is about a kind of like second chance romance where Eleanor and Gray, as they were teenagers, have this connection. Eleanor's mom is dying from cancer. Gray kind of swoops in to kind of like take her mind off it. And now it's like years later, they kind of have like disconnected at this point, and Eleanor is applying to be a nanny for 2 children, I believe, and she goes in for the interview, and it's Gray. And Gray is recently widowed, trying to raise his little girls, and it's their second chance love story, and it was so good. You will bawl your eyes out, but very good. Then I've got 3 Blind Dates by Megan Quinn, another book that I read on Kindle Unlimited and then had to own. So definitely there's some really great romances over there. This is a story about a girl who goes on 3 blind dates. It's like a website or like a dating service where like you get matched with a person, you get to go out with them, and if you don't like them, you can go out with number 2. You only get 3 chances though at meeting the one. And she meets these 3 guys, and ultimately she's got to pick one, and it was a lot of fun. There's 2 other books, so she obviously ends up with somebody in this book. The second book follows one of the guys that she didn't choose, and the third book follows the other guy she didn't choose. I own the second one, so I really need to get on it. But yeah, this is just a fun little romance book. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is one that I don't own. It's a Kindle book that, guess what, I plan on purchasing it at some point. And that is Match Cut by Julia Olivia. Small town romance vibes. Girl has to go. She's been like filming a documentary. She gets like really like good buzz from the first documentary that she puts out, and she is under pressure to film her second documentary. And she goes home for a little bit and to be with her family. And there's a romance with, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's her brother's best friend. I think I have that correctly. But yeah, small town romance, which I absolutely adore. These are my top 10 favorites for right now. Like I said, I'm sure there's plenty on my shelves that I also love, but these were 10 that really stuck out to me. Let me know what your favorite romance is so I can add it to my list, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.